How's it going? And welcome back to the Creative Endeavor Podcast. This is a podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. And I think inspiration is really what we could all use right now. Look, maybe you're in a similar situation to me. I'm coming to you from my home now. I'm no longer at the studio, in isolation. It is what it is. But we're going to keep the content rolling here, and I've been reaching out to loads of artists all around the world to bring to you some really inspiring conversations and also talk to some other people about how they're dealing with the current situation that we're all facing. In this podcast, I talked to Sam Lewis, aka SLEW, who's a fantastic young artist based in the United States. Now, I first found out about Sam through his YouTube channel. When I first tuned in and started watching his videos, I was having such a good time just looking at what he was producing. He was sitting somewhere around the 30 to 40,000 subscribers mark. And then within a couple of months, I checked back in and he's got like 150 to 160,000 subs. And I'm just like, whoa, like it was amazing to see the meteoric growth that he had in his channel. But it's little wonder that he's grown so fast. I mean, he presents well, he creates amazing content, and it's just so much fun to watch. Now, he does work that's quite different. I haven't really talked to anybody from his background before. He's more or less a graphic street artist, really inspired by, street culture and graffiti. And so he was coming at this from a whole different angle. And I just really appreciated that. It was something really fresh and new and exciting about it for me anyway. So I wanted to have Sam onto the podcast, ask him all about his background, how he got into art, and how he's finding things now with the new digital medium. This was a fantastic conversation. I got a lot out of it. I hope you will too. So without further ado, here's Sam Lewis, aka SLEW, in the Creative Endeavor. Well, Sam Lewis, aka SLEW, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the Creative Endeavor.
Thank you. It is quite a treat for me to talk to you. I'm excited.
Awesome. Me too. Let's kick things off. This is a way I really love kicking things off because this gives everybody a chance really to get to know you and hear about where you started. So how did this creative journey kick off for you? Where are your beginnings?
Ooh, good question. I think the beginnings for me started with graffiti and spray painting and actually YouTube. Like I live in like a suburban area, grew up there, so I wasn't in like a city where I could see graffiti, but on YouTube I love graffiti, I love spray paint. So that was kind of like my first, the origin story of using paint or artistic endeavors. Like I was a creative kid, I guess. Legos, I took apart Nerf guns, but in terms of the more fine art stuff, it was definitely graffiti and falling in love with kind of graffiti characters. And that's where it really all began for me.
So graffiti. So let me get this straight. I mean, I know there's like a real slick kind of graphic style that people are, and a lot of spray paint artists have. And I of course, everybody's an artist in their own right, and they've created these, interesting works. But how are you? They're almost, I'll put it this way, and I'm trying hard to pose this question so I don't offend you, but
no, when
I hear the word graffiti, the old man in me comes out. I start shaking my fist and I'm like, oh, you youngsters, go back to school. Right. Are you finding walls and stuff to paint on, or now I guess it would take the form of mural work? I mean, so what form is that coming in now?
So yeah, I don't do graffiti basically at all anymore. This was like when I was 16, 17, it was kind of like the first, like you said, the illustrative pop style. It got me enamored with it, and that's what made me try it. And then that slowly went to canvas work and then naturalistic painting. But so I never did really, well, I got actually arrested when I was 18 for doing graffiti, but that was like one of maybe 3 times I actually did it illegally, vandalizing, which was hilarious. That's a funny story maybe for later. But so I really never partook in it. I practiced like in my garage. I spray painted. I wrote my name in the letters, SLEW. But it really shifted towards graffiti characters and doing murals, like you said. So large scale characters, fantastical things with spray paint. And yeah, when I was that age, 18, 19, like that's all I wanted to do, huge murals. And I did that for a while. That's actually like the beginning of my YouTube channel. It was all murals at my local skate park where you had open legal walls. But it slowly transitioned into other things, and then other things, doors open. I got a little older. I went to an art school, so there's the answer for yeah. So I was never doing illegal stuff per se.
I
It's just
know.
like that. It was just like the lifestyle, not the
Yeah.
lifestyle, the graphic imaging and the yeah, just that style of painting. I just loved it.
That's cool, man. Like I guess yeah, I'm sure myself and a lot of other people, and maybe it's ignorance to a large extent that triggers something in us when we hear the word graffiti. We automatically equate it to vandalism of some type. But you've taken this thing, you've run with it now, and now I can hear that there's more and more places. I mean, we've got places opening up here in the town where I live where mural art and graffiti style art is becoming more acceptable. Things are going to happen as a result of that. We're going to see a lot more color on a lot of the blank walls, which is totally awesome. So
Sure, yeah.
for the people out there that would be listening to this, maybe we could kick things off here with hearing a bit about, because I've always wanted to know as well, how do you go about painting something that large, and what are you painting it with? I mean, I know spray cans would be a huge part of it, but maybe give
Yep.
us a run through of how you would produce one of your mural works.
Totally, yeah. Spray paint is the pretty much the only thing. I mean, I'll use a big acrylic brush or some outdoor exterior latex paint, but spray paint for most of professional street art murals is the thing to do, and it's quite they're quite amazing, especially the artist specific cans that are for these murals. It's really like having an airbrush in your hand. They're extremely precise. If you've never used one, or people listening, they have different caps. You can do fat and thin lines, so it's very versatile actually, different pressures. So yeah, for large scale, I think it's the same kind of approach that I would do a painting, especially if it's so big, it's hard to get very far back. So you maybe could use a grid. You could do a doodle grid, which is kind of the same idea, except using your phone, you take a picture. But a lot of times I will just use a simple grid for those bigger pieces, or just, try to freeball it. You got a square, you give yourself the borders and things like that. So pretty similar, in terms of my experience, it's quite similar than how I would set up maybe a portrait or some sort of composition like that.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah,
So let's go back. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the story.
let's do it.
When you were younger, and you're pretty young now, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 24. I actually turned 25 this coming Saturday, so
Oh,
got a
happy
quarter
birthday.
coming up. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there you go.
So your art journey, when did you first kind of discover that you were interested in art and this was something that was really calling you?
So it had to be probably well, there's different kind of like peaks and valleys. Probably junior year of high school, I was actually at boarding school. That summer, I did the whole graffiti thing, and I had a great space above my older house, above my garage, where my mom let me spray paint. And so that whole summer got really into it, watched a bunch of videos. I mean, I was filming myself back then. So I got really into it, and actually going into my senior year of high school, boarding school, where I sleep away at school, I actually got an independent study approved for a class on graffiti, like the evolution of graffiti, how it's like a youth movement, pop culture. And they let me spray paint on campus, which is kind of absurd because it was very preppy, jacket tie everyday type of school. So after that year, it was like very part of my life, and I was going off to college, but I maintained it and even evolved it and kept going. So that was a huge year, and especially that independent study at that school was like a turning point. It really changed the trajectory of where I was going because of that experience, I think.
Wow, independent study. That's not something
Yeah,
we really hear much of amongst
mm,
school programs nowadays.
yeah,
And it's not, art is certainly not something that's really, well, I don't, maybe it's my ignorance coming through again, but I wasn't really aware of a lot of people that would be encouraging of anything creative because they
Yeah.
would want to know, hey, this is going to lead to a job or this or a
Uh-huh.
that. You're gonna
Yeah.
become something. So so you had that support early on, and
Yeah.
were you thinking? I mean, this is now a business for you, like making art, making videos, selling paintings.
Yes. Yes.
Um, did you have any kind of indication early on that this was something that you wanted to devote your life to?
No, it wasn't, especially not during that high school independent year. It was certainly an intense hobby and passion. Like I was very into it. And I was so lucky to have that support and get the study approved. But, I don't think I would have gotten it if I didn't show my serious interest. And, it was kind of, the origins of my interest in painting and graffiti was like kind of by me, for me. No one told me, no one showed me. My mom, it's like I discovered it for me. So that passion was kind of very, it was very intense for me. It was personal in whatever way. But no, from that point, that young, I didn't at all. What I did do though, which is my business now, is document, film my stuff. So even back there, 16, 17, I was doing time lapses of every piece, everything I did, I
Wow.
filmed. And so that's kind of the consistency and raising that bar of documentation, cinematography, of what I'm doing now. So that's kind of a common thread, you could say.
Yeah. So it's interesting, Sam, because I've been following you on YouTube now for a little while, and I first came across your YouTube channel a few months ago, and I watched one of your videos, and you were painting some fine art. I think you were even doing a mural in your studio or something, and I was watching you, and I just appreciated so much like how well done the video was, but the energy that you brought to it as well. Like you're really funny. Really fun to watch. You brought this humor to it and an energy to it. And I was looking at your subscriber count at the time, and it was like 50 to 60,000. And I was saying to my wife, like, she was wondering what I was laughing about. And I just said, this guy is really good and he's awesome to watch. I think this guy's going to be one to watch. Definitely. I check back in a few months, down the track, you've gone from like 50 to 60 or whatever it was to over 130,000. Amazing growth in just a short period of time. And I think like there's no reason that's going to stop. I think it'll keep going and going and going for you. Can you tell me a little bit about your YouTube journey so far and maybe where the channel started for you? Because it's always interesting to hear about other YouTubers as well. Like it's interesting to hear about their trajectory and their story about how that started. And maybe how does your YouTube channel as well, if you can add this in, how does it factor in and fuel or supplement your artistic journey?
Mm, great question. And yeah, YouTube is like, I would be lying if I didn't say that YouTube was like my whole life before the whole art, before painting. I had several YouTube channels, video games, skateboarding, fingerboarding, like you name it, when I was super young. And also, I never really watched Netflix or anything like that. I love movies. I'm a movie buff, but just a mass intake of YouTube videos, religiously subscribed people for, dozens of years. So YouTube has been my life. I like to say, my mom hates when I say it, but I like to say YouTube raised me, which is a terrible thing. But yeah, so like I said, I was filming and documenting those like the graffiti independent study I had, and I was uploading them to YouTube, but just very periodically, just because I just love putting it up, and it wasn't something serious. After I built my studio, I renovated this space where I work now 4 years ago with my best friend who's a musician. That was kind of like I was doing art on the side, and that was like, all right, I'm gonna take art way more serious. Like I was taking documenting videography more serious, and so we both decided to put a bunch of money together to make this creative space, with the intention to continue the YouTube channel I had. Wasn't really taken super seriously, but that was certainly the intention. And so that happened, and it was 3 years. Throughout that time, I left a school. I went to a art school in New York City. I left that school again. I went to an atelier for a year, and so the passion for art kept going higher, and I was using this space, and I was documenting everything from that point. all my work and upload it to YouTube, but it really didn't pick up. There wasn't much response. I think in 3.5 years of doing it pretty much like a part-time job, I had maybe 12,000 subscribers, and this was just last summer. And then in August of this past summer, a few of the videos went mini, viral within the art community, I guess you can say, and it brought in maybe 60,000 subscribers, which was, unbelievable. And then a few videos in the last month have done really well. But, you know, it was always a pipe dream of mine to be a YouTuber, to be a content creator, to make money through doing quite literally the thing I love most. I mean, absolutely love painting, and I will for the rest of my life. But making videos and editing and having that kind of directorial freedom, it was a dream without doubt. And it's funny because I left all these schools. I never graduated. I've been living at home with my mom, and I've just been telling her for the past 3 years, Mom, like, I could do this. Like, this is a thing. Like, you can make money. It's kind of lucrative. Like, I think I'm really good at it. And I've been so lucky that she's given me this support and time to do it. So when I first got my first check from YouTube, and after this past summer when things really started picking up, it was great affirmation, honestly, for me, and just like a kind of a relief because and honestly, I thought it would happen sooner. I don't want to sound pompous or cocky, but I put so much time into making the videos and effort and consistency over like 3+ years. So I thought that I would be getting more success, but it was kind of just like, flatline and then boom. So it happened. I was super happy, and I'm just trying to, and I am doing it full time now, and I'm just trying to, keep on doing what I'm doing what I love, bigger scale, higher quality.
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool to hear. I'm glad that it's picking up for you as well, and that it's starting to pay off. I think it's interesting when it comes to the online world, and I've had a bit of this in my journey as well. There was this feeling like when I first was posting on Facebook and Instagram, and then eventually YouTube, I had this thought in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, I put the content out there. Why isn't it viral yet?
Right.
And almost a secret hope that I would be or have one of these things that just blew up and exploded. And I have had that over in a couple of cases, but it's interesting, like how random it is and how organic it is at times as well. It's either one thing or another, but it's never something you can really rely on. But from what you're saying, and I think especially today, in today's day and age, I mean, look, I think we've got to be aware and maybe just acknowledge what's happening in the world as people are collectively losing their minds. But as artists, I think that this is a really good reminder as well to have as many irons in the fire as possible.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. And now as a full-time artist, I do have several different revenue streams, not just the YouTube and the videography, but I think that's completely right. And it's interesting what you said before I didn't really answer, which I would actually love to talk about. And I've heard you talk to all the other artists on your podcast, which is such an interesting conversation, is like kind of losing yourself, I guess, in the social media, looking for the views, compromising your work and what you want to do for the views and stuff. And I think it's kind of like a balance thing, and I have things to say on both sides. On the positive side, we'll start with, I think that if I didn't have my obsession with YouTube and documenting, I would never sit down for as many hours as I have and paint and do the projects. It's almost like an extreme catalyst to make stuff, to draw, to paint. So it is an extreme, motivator to make art in that very general, broad sense. And then kind of towards the other side, it's okay, now I feel guilty when I'm not filming if I'm sketching. I can't sketch now without filming. I can't do anything without, capturing it or thinking about what the video is going to be. So it's like this very push and pull yin yang thing. But I think both are equally true. And I've thought about that so much. And especially now with me having more success, it's like I want the views, right? Obviously, I'm a business. If I'm taking myself as a business in the pie chart, I love to paint. I want to make money. I want to be entertaining. I want to make the videos I want to make. But it's kind of just like you said, it's a very fickle push and pull, kind of balance between all that, all that red tape of being a digital creator, you know?
So how about, so you mentioned there that, how about the negative side then? I mean, I can hear that it's a push
Mm,
and pull, and and I don't want to dwell too much in the negative, of course. We have enough of
right,
that going on, but
of course.
I think that, just to echo some of what you're saying, I found the online and the connectivity of it to be incredibly beneficial, but
Mm,
you do have a tendency, and I say you as in terms of the universal you, as we all as
yep.
creatives, I guess, have the tendency to lose ourselves with this over, um, emphasis on likes, numbers, views, shares, and all of the analytics and the metrics of it. It's like how many people like my
Hmm.
post, how many people commented on my post. How do you avoid losing yourself in that and getting caught up in the minutia of social media?
Totally. I think, I honestly think that you should never fully get lost from it. Like you don't want to be lost in it, but you should never push it away like it doesn't exist. And I can only really speak for me, as a creator, as like I said, this is a business, so I am looking at the numbers. I want to know the numbers. I want to dive into the analytics so I can make my digital content as successful as possible to reach as many people. And that's just like the kind of, you know, unemotional business side, which I think you kind of need to have, especially if you want to be successful on these social platforms. But in terms of it affecting what you make, or if you're just hyper aware of that, you're looking every second, that's terrible. I don't know any techniques, you know, to, to relieve that. But, for me, certainly when I had that pop of extreme views that I was always thinking about, I was so amazed. The numbers, the money, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was certainly more than I ever thought I would be making through making videos. But it's just a balance, and it's hard. It's addictive. It's especially, I mean, you're from a different generation, obviously, but like I feel like me and my friends, even younger, it's like this innate, desire now to see how many likes, and there's so much affirmation behind it, which is just so insane and, pretty unnatural. But it really is, especially I think for my generation, just like, exposure, status and exposure through numbers. And yeah, it's not good. But again, for the business side, I think it's completely necessary. And I'm certainly always looking at analytics, but not because I get affirmation from it, but because, I'm trying to be business savvy on that side.
Yeah, I can totally hear you. I'll try not to take your comment that I'm from another generation personally, by the way. Watch that. But
We'll edit
no,
that out.
no, look, I could totally hear. You've got a level head about this, and that's really good. I think my absolutely. My comment probably reveals a bit more about my own personal reservations and hang-ups about the medium. I'm amazed that today, and I have said on several occasions on this podcast, as many people will be sick of me saying it now, but there has never been a better time to be an artist. There's never been a
Oh
better time to
gosh,
get creative.
no.
It's the overemphasis in terms of a self validation. I think that
Hmm.
or the validation that comes from the numbers and all of that. I think if we put our focus there and say I mean something, I'm worth something because of these numbers, then I think that can be dangerous. But I totally take your point from the business side of things, and I have to watch the numbers as well. I have to see the
For sure.
effectiveness, gauge the effectiveness, and it also does change in a real way, it does change my behavior within my
Mm,
business. It
mm,
changes the kinds of things that I do and how I do them. I found it to be overall a net positive than anything
right.
else. But like anything with life, I guess you take the good with the bad, right?
Sure. And I mean, I mean, if this is the business, if this is what the day and age is, you should be moving with the
Mm.
ebbs and flows of how it works. I mean, don't let it compromise. I'm sure you would never let that happen, or the general you. But, I think that's important. That's like a kind of a strategy. If you're kind of stuck in your ways, especially with this crazy, internet time, everything's changing, trends change, or even the minute. Like you should be open and you know, able to mold and mend around. I think it's important. But and yeah, something else I wanted to touch on that you said is that there really isn't a better time to be an artist. And more specifically, I think for more my situation is learning art and being a practitioner as a young artist. The internet is a crazy place with so much not only free content but high quality content. Like I've seen every one of your videos, a masterful weathered artist who's giving us incredible insights and techniques with high quality, but also sharing your passion. Not just you, Cesar Santos. I don't want to smoke your salmon too much here, Andrew, but there James Gurney, Stan Prokopenko, like these unbelievable craftsmen in the realm of fine arts. I'm talking about fine arts specifically, but you could find any genre of any professional on YouTube. It's amazing, and how much I've learned from your videos, other guys I mentioned, is just really insane. And people ask me honestly, which is, people ask me for art tips, advice. I think my channel, my viewership, it tends to the real beginner, oh, I really like art, I want to start, they haven't even started, so they're looking for tips or advice into the world, and they're looking for books and they're looking for advice. And I just kind of say the same thing. I said, there's unlimited free amazing content online that if you could just learn how to mimic and copy and just get a sketch pad out while the screen is playing, not all the time, but it's really something else. And besides the year I went to an atelier to study painting kind of full on very intensely, I really considered myself a self-taught artist. And just by watching videos, I think I'm really good at practicing what I see. And like I said, I've absorbed so many videos. It's really funny actually. I didn't start oil painting until the end of 2018. My first oil painting I ever did was at the atelier in October of 2018. But my knowledge of the language of oil painting, how many videos I watched for a year plus, absorbing all of it, it's like I was so high on the knowledge of the nomenclature of even, the color theory, whatever you want to say, how to mix the paint, the mediums, it was so high, I just had never actually done it. So it's like I could understand Spanish, but I couldn't speak it at all, if you know what I mean. And so that gave me a huge advantage, I think. And then from the moment I started oil painting, granted, it was in a great school, it was very intense, and I was extremely focused, I think it perpetuated my growth. And it's just not something to take for granted. I mean, you make videos every week, all these artists make and it's really amazing. I'm so grateful, and I take so much away from it, but I think that's an amazing resource for people, if they really are, just to get pumped about the amazing quality and content there is from you wonderful people.
Stop. I think you're being a bit nice, but I do appreciate that, Sam. I do appreciate that very much.
For real.
I wasn't fishing, bro. I promise.
Yeah.
I like that as well. I don't want to smoke your salmon, but
yeah. I'm sure I'll be doing some more of that.
But I'm going to pull you up again just with a warning. So first I've got them from a different generation, and then I think you just called me weathered. Okay, you get one more. And then
wise experience.
Yeah. Then I hang up on you. Although I will say I've got a couple of gray hairs starting to emerge out of my mustache, and I'm a little worried now. Yeah. No, look, it's wonderful, and me too. I mean, with art, but also with all sorts of other things. Gardening and some survival stuff and other educational stuff, current events stuff. I mean, it's amazing that and it's almost a no-brainer that people can jump on now to YouTube and do a deep dive into something that they're really, really interested in. And I think now, again, with the current times and everything that's going on, maybe there'll be a whole lot more of that. Maybe if we could get any kind of positive from the shape that the world is taking nowadays, it's that we might be able to dive into those things that have always interested us, but we never had the opportunity to do so. And it's really nice to know that we've got a resource that we can turn to that's free, that's absolutely free.
Certainly.
you know.
Yeah, you said it.
Yeah, I think it's just awesome. Before we move too much further down, I love a good story, Sam, and I want to hear. I do want to talk about art schools and dive into that and hear about your experience with those
Totally.
multiple art schools. But first, I want to hear about your a little bit more about your younger days. I know we're jumping all over the
Hmm.
place here. You did
No
mention
worries.
something about you getting arrested, and I want to hear all
Yeah.
about that story. What on earth were you doing, young man?
Oh, a whole lot of dumb things, but it really just it's the most ironic story ever, and like looking back every year, it's just so funny. My independent study at boarding school was pretty much I didn't do much writing. It was pretty much experiencing graffiti. I was doing graffiti. I was documenting it. I wrote like a paper or two, but it was pretty much how graffiti was an art form formed from a youth culture, people in New York City and around the world. It's like a youth-based culture that turned into an art movement. And now, there's graffiti artists who were doing illegal stuff who are in the biggest galleries making millions of dollars, whatever. So it was pretty much art. Graffiti is art. And so during that, the spring break of my senior year, which was, close to the end of when I was graduating, my best friend, his name is also Sam, lived in the town where the boarding school was. So he was a day student, actually. There was only like 10% of the kids at the school was a day student. Everyone else boarded. And so for spring break, the first day I went to his house and I had all my spray paint from school. And, it was just one of those like not thinking about dumb decisions. The first day of spring break, go out that night and go around the small town in Massachusetts, and just like spray paint a little, just the dumbest, ugliest, most unflattering things, just because I guess we were bored, having trying to have fun, be stupid kids, and we did it. We did this one spot, and then like drove maybe 10 minutes, which happened to be another town. Tried spray painting this other spot. Someone saw my car parked. It was just like the most obvious place. So dumb. It's just so cringy and dumb looking back at it. And they called the cops. Cops parked in front of my car. We were very hidden, but they're in front of my car, so I couldn't do anything. My buddy ran away because I think he already was in some trouble, and so I pretty much just like mellowly walked and was like, "Hey, like this is my car." Got arrested, and I was actually charged twice from the two different towns that I spray painted in, that they found both of them, and so I got in a whole bunch of trouble. And it was terrible because it's such a small town in Massachusetts where my boarding school was located. So I was thinking the whole town was going to find out, my school was going to find out, I was going to get kicked out of my boarding school, I was going to get rejected from the college I had got in from that point, which I already did. So I thought all this stuff was going to happen. It was going to be terrible. Spring break happened. I had to do all the court stuff, a bunch of community service, pay a lot of money, and went back and no one found out. Nothing happened. It was like it never happened, which is hilarious. And I finished my independent study on graffiti, with the few months I had left. But it's just like the most ironic story because if they had found out, like my advisor was, pulled for me to get that independent study. Like I had to do all this stuff to get it. They were like, oh, this is, just like anyone. Oh, this kid's spray painting at school. He's doing graffiti. Like, what is this kid doing? And then to get arrested in the town while I had it all, it would have just been, you couldn't make it up. You know what I mean? But it worked out. So no one really found out, which is just pretty funny. So that's the story. Yeah.
Excellent. You naughty, naughty boy. Wow.
Yeah, no, it was not my
Listen,
finest hour.
if they had, if you'd spent a while on those works of art, like if you'd taken a bit more time with them and they did find out, then I guess that would have been a heck of a PR campaign.
Totally. They were so into the opposite of that, though. They were just like scribble dumb, the dumbest thing ever. But I only wish that they were amazing artworks. Yeah.
Well, you've been doing. Oh, okay. No, I won't ask that yet. I won't. We'll just again. We are jumping all over the place here, and I
Yeah.
know that. But
Yeah.
it's just such a treat to get to talk to you. So it's a real pleasure. I want to hear about your art school experience. People no doubt will know about mine, and it's always interesting to hear what other people went through.
I actually
And,
don't know your experience, and I'm sorry to push on you, but could you give me the elevator pitch? Like, where did you study? I don't know. I've listened to all of your podcasts and all your videos, and I don't know why I don't know.
Yeah, basically, people have heard this, but the short elevator pitch basically is my. I was in high school and I wanted to go to art school. I thought at the time that it would make me, certainly it would turn me into an artist. My father did, though, to his credit, warn me. He said, look, you're not going to art school to learn how to be an artist. You're going to expand your social horizons. But still in the back of my mind, despite, the respect that I had for my father, I thought that this was going to be something that would be an essential piece to my artistic journey, and I would learn some things, gain some secret knowledge, and then that would send me off. I was really disappointed in my art school experience. There was no technique whatsoever, and of course, looking back now, I probably went to the wrong art school. That maybe there is a time and a place for that sort of institution, but I found that there was very little teaching there in terms of technique, and it was more about kind of opinions and schools of thought to do with the creation itself. If you want to learn how to paint or draw, then perhaps a tertiary institution like that, like a university course, is not the way to go. What I would probably should have done, looking back at it now, is gone through some sort of traditional art school or an atelier or an academy, and learn through the academic process of
Right.
setting up a still life and drawing a still life or a cast over and over and over. Fundamentals of drawing, fundamentals of painting, life drawing, figure drawing, painting. And just throwing myself into technique with instructors who were practicing artists, not just professors. And so looking back now, I probably should have done that, but that was my art school experience. I'm grateful for the experience, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, but I also learned that it was probably a mistake. Um,
Mm.
uh, but so you then I mean, with your experience, you've spread your art schooling out to what'd you say, three different institutions within a short period of time?
Well,
Run me through
no,
that.
yeah, so yeah, I had a similar experience as you did, and I'll talk about it. But no, out of high school, I went to a normal liberal arts. So I actually went to Denver University in Colorado for 1 semester. This is going to be a crazy story, so prepare yourself. Denver University for 1 semester right out of high school. And then I left because it was super anticlimactic. I didn't know what I wanted. I was just in boarding school, which is like mini college. And then I go to basically the same thing. I was like, all right, I don't want to do this. I took a gap semester actually to Southeast Asia, where I was pretty much going fully down like the Eastern philosophy route, Buddhism. I wasn't trying to be a Buddhist, but it was this amazing program where you travel through Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam for a whole semester, and it was an unbelievable trip. I was super interested in all of it, and it was just like a year to, just figure some cool stuff out, and I was very into it. And actually, after that, I was so into all of that stuff, Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, that I applied to this university in Boulder, Colorado, which was like the only legitimate university that like has Buddhism. It's called Naropa. It's actually pretty much in the armpit of the big state school, CU Boulder, where all my buddies went to as well. So I was living with my buddies and going to this really contemplative education school where you do yoga and mindfulness training. You also take writing classes, and it's a legit university you can graduate from, but it's the most out there kind of one like that in Boulder. And I did that for a year, and it was a very dualistic, weird lifestyle. I was with my friends at the biggest party school in like the country, living in a house with them, and then going to this school, and it was just very bizarre. Doing a lot of skiing, and so that wasn't really sustainable. So that was after that year, I moved back home to Connecticut, where I'm from, and I worked at a restaurant for a year and a half. And during that time is when I built the studio with my friend. And after a year and a half there, I was really into art, and I was like, all right, you know what I need to do, Andrew? I need to go to art school now. And so I applied to like pretty much there's a bunch of art schools around where I am. I'm in New England, in the United States, but I applied to Parsons in New York City, which is a very renowned design school. I don't even want to call it an art school. And I did get in, which was crazy. I was extremely amped, and all I wanted to do was paint. I wanted to learn to paint. I wanted to become an artist. I wanted to become a studio artist. I knew that. That's something that I was excited, and it's rare that kids know at my age. I knew I wanted it. I wanted to be a studio artist, and I wanted to learn to paint. And I got there first semester, didn't paint at all. It was all like what you said. It was conception, theory. I had to do the first year program, even though I was already 21, 22 at the time. I like restarted as a freshman, and it was the opposite of what I expected. And that's just for me, for my experience, because I knew what I wanted. And if you graduate from that school, you'll get an amazing degree, and you could get a great job in the business side of the art world. But I wanted to use a pencil and paintbrush, and that's what I wanted. So I left that after the first semester, and then I had the summer again to be in my studio, and I applied to an atelier. I actually didn't apply. There's an atelier in New York City called the Artist Students League. There's several in New York City. This is a very laxed one, actually, where it's not a rigorous curriculum. It's just month-to-month classes. There's a bunch of studio space. There's a master teacher in each class that gives you little critiques, but it's basically on your own. You set up, model comes in, 1 week poses. So I did that for about 8 months and just rocket shipped my technique and understanding, and just really fell in love with oil painting and naturalistic painting. And so this is all very recently, because that was last year. And then over the summer, so I was doing YouTube this whole time, after I got back from Southeast Asia, pretty much 3 years ago. So I was doing YouTube this past summer. I had the opportunity to go to another atelier, a really rigorous one, because after my 8 months at this more laxed one, I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to take the next step. I want to dive deep. Like, I'm ready to invest 2-3 years to do a super intense, I call it like a D1 athlete's training for drawing and painting. Like, that's really what I wanted to do, because YouTube wasn't really working out. I had to like find, new options. And I met with the owner of this school, actually, a really successful painter, Jacob Collins, if you're familiar with him. He started a bunch of ateliers, the Water Street and Grand Central Atelier, which I was applying to. And I was super late applying for the fall term. And I met with him. He invited me to his studio in New York, the most amazing studio I've ever seen. And we had an epic conversation for an hour. And I'll never forget, he opened it. He was like, if you want to come to this school, you want to you want to be able to paint like the masters. You want to have the masters at your fingertips. And I was like, oh man, like that's what I want. That's what I want. But contrary to what that I just said, throughout the conversation, it was like one of those movies. I had this like Eureka moment. I was like, I love making videos. I love YouTube. Like, I have this studio. I'm living my dream right now. This school can wait. So pretty much after me begging to meet with him to get into his school, and he pretty much said, yeah, we have space for you if you want. At the end, I was like, hey man, I'm actually not going to do this. I'm going to go back to my studio and do this thing I've been working on for the past 2-3 years. I've gotten a little momentum. Like, this is what I want to do. That was in June. And then August, my channel kind of, really did really well. So it was crazy timing. It was crazy affirmation. And I look back all the time. It's like one of those insane stories, and that's all true. But I still think I would love to go to that school. I mean, I have the itch for it all the time. And the great thing about it is schools and institutions like that will always be there. And they're kind of always going to be there. So that was like my decision making. That was a crazy rant. But so yeah, my opinion though is exactly what you said. You have to really understand what art schools are and what training, what you want to do as a craftsman, right? As a technician of painter. And the atelier that I went to, even for 8 months, like, it was only drawing, only painting. You know what I mean? So there's a huge difference, and maybe people don't know, but people ask me all the time my experience, and that's kind of the story. The long story.
No, it's great. No, as I said before, I mean, we love the long stories here. That's
Okay,
what it's all
okay, yeah.
about. I mean,
Please cut me off
no, it's
if I
about
interrupt you
hearing
many
hearing
times.
exactly what you went through, and that how extraordinary. You know, it's interesting. I find that those moments as well, like, and I've had a few over my career. Those eureka moments where you're sitting there, something arrives, you think you want it, and then when it
Hmm.
finally gets there, it's like, huh.
Yeah,
It doesn't really line up with the way I thought that this would go. Um, and yeah, I think that's extraordinary because I think, yeah, in that moment you would have realized that you had what you were really searching for all this time. And
totally.
again, the medium that is at our fingertips and what we have available to us these days is is extraordinary. So why not use those opportunities? Yeah. Wow, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think you will you know, despite how YouTube's working out, despite
Mhm.
how well it's going for you at the moment, do you think that one day an art school would be something that you'd be into?
It's a good question. Like I said, I think about it all the time, and I think it would be something that I would really be into because what I don't lack as an artist is the hunger to learn and the passion. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but like I can't get enough. Really
that's
can't get enough.
awesome.
So to be at a full-time place with unbelievable, like this is the school I was going to go to is an unbelievable school. Like the people there are just out of this world. So I want to be able to do that, and I'll do whatever it takes. And like I said, I'm just so into it. So I would. I don't think I will. I mean, if my YouTube dies somehow tomorrow, yeah, maybe. But for the foreseeable future, I can't see myself because it really is just a huge chunk of time to dedicate. It's also I would have to move to New York City, which I couldn't pay for because I live at home with my mom now. But I think about it all the time. I try to keep my practice current, not nearly as much as I would as an atelier, but like a video I actually just uploaded this past Saturday is me just drawing, pretty academic study drawing, and I try to do that as much as I can when I don't have other work, just to keep keep the grease off the muscles, or whatever that saying is. So yeah, it's extremely enticing, and I follow a bunch of academic painters, and I follow all the schools, and I try to take demos when I can. That's like the supplement. You can do like weekly demos, or I went to a pro. I did a demo with what's her name, Jennifer Gennari. She's an animal painter, amazing. And I was just, you just sit there for 4 hours, watch her paint. She talks, and just even that just gives you, the fire in your heart from just academic painting. And so I think that's what I'll probably do. And I mean, there's other little groups you can join around where I am, and hopefully one day I can have enough people where I can maybe, or enough money where I can hire my own models and I could do my own open drawing sessions with buddies and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, but art school, maybe not for the foreseeable future. I got my good taste, you know what I mean?
You certainly did. You certainly did. Look, let's get into a couple of things to do with the business side here.
Uh,
You released a video. Well, I'm not sure how recent it is, so forgive me, but I caught something recently on your channel where you had this little business concept and you were painting, put a shout out to your Instagram followers and then painting commissions. I'll let
mm,
you talk about that. But the reason I wanted to ask you is, you know, the sheer volume of emails and messages I get from people asking how to make it as an artist and the total, you know, lack that I have to be able to provide people with a real, you know, tangible answer to
mm,
selling work online. You took it and encapsulated it in such a beautiful way and then put it out there to the world. And I'm watching this video and I'm going, Sam, that is genius. That is absolutely genius. A lot of work, I understand now,
mm.
but could you tell us that story about the video that I'm talking about?
Sure. So, I think it's 8 oil paintings or how I make money as an artist. That's the title, but pretty much, yeah, I blasted something on Instagram saying Um, I'm taking commissions, a 10 by 10 panel. I'm only going to pick 6 to 8 people, and I DM me if you're interested. And then when people DM me, I gave them the price. The price was $200 for those paintings. And so, but my the inception was to make a video about it. And so it wasn't just money. It was to make a video about it. It was going to be, every time I do painting, whether it's commission or making money, it's an opportunity for me to practice. So I really did think it was, like we were just talking about, keeping, the muscles taut, so to speak. I want to do a lot of practice. I want to take on a large, painting project. And I thought, how can I make money? How can I have social engagement? How can I, make a cool video? So I came up with that idea, and I knew I was going to get a lot of inquiries just because my following was a little bigger then. And also, I'm in the United States. People would DM me, I get a bunch of DMs a week. Can I buy prints and blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't nervous necessarily about selling. It was more about executing the paintings and what people wanted me to do. And it was also a tremendous lesson on dealing with clients and that relationship, and talking about money, when you're going to send the money, all these like kind of nuances that there is, and when dealing with painting commissions, which I'm a huge beginner at. I've sold maybe a couple dozen paintings, but only in the last 6 months. Before that, it was nothing. I wasn't making money like that at all. So I'm still a beginner, and the bedside manner of talking to clients and people, it was a huge experience in that. But what we were talking about before is it was a lot of work. It was actually really stressful because I gave the people, I think, 3 weeks as a deadline. They were all in the United States. But I mean, this is for most artists, but I can't give something to someone regardless of the amount of money, unless like I give it my all, whether that's going to be super successful or not. Like I have to, I'll just feel guilty. So I put in a lot of time to those paintings that, which I don't think was worth, if I were to, calculate it all up, it would be more than $200, I'd say, of time per painting. But overall, it was a tremendous experience for me, only beneficial. I mean, it's just my own fault for working harder and being a perfectionist and not being, super confident, I guess you could say, about the work. But I was super happy with all the end products. I think there was only 2 portraits and there was six dogs. So yeah, it was an awesome video. The video did successful. I think the people liked the paintings. I certainly got a bunch of practice, and overall it was a good idea. I think so. Yeah. So thanks for shouting that out. But that's the rundown.
Well, the reason I loved it, though, I mean, again, you're very modest, and I appreciate it, but I think the thing that was brilliant about it is that you hear in this day and age of so many people kind of expecting the success or waiting for it to come to them, and here it was like, no, I've got this little idea, I'm going to put it out there to the world, I'm going to throw it out there, see who's interested, who wants a piece of this, and that you were using the networks and the resources that you had kind of gathered, of course, using social media as well. But it seemed like that, yeah, okay, successful experiment, successful thing. And then it's a question of how many of those experiments, could you run where now it's a viable business? What's stopping you doing it again and again and again? And I looked at it, okay, I've been a professional artist now for 16 years and I've been successful. I've had, doing big commissions for clients around the world and have had sellout exhibitions and things. But I'm looking at this little video thinking, there's some elegance in its simplicity. It is a beautiful idea. And it was just, for me, touching back on the basics, going, how come I've forgotten about this? So I tell you what it did for me in a very real way. It made me want to immediately reach out and re-engage with my client base. And it made me want to go, okay, who's out there that has got need of a painting? And then it made me want to just kind of re-engage that base, put the feelers out there, and then just start working and create things that were smaller, affordable. And because my natural inclination, I feel this gravity, maybe that's because they're so massive, but this gravity toward and being pulled towards big projects. And not everybody has got the wall space. Fortunately, some people do, and they order paintings. But for the most part, people just want something small. And so here
Hmm.
you've got like a 30 centimeter square by the looks of things in the video, like a foot square. And I was looking at that going, man, he could feasibly knock these out. You know, you get this up and running and cranking. I appreciate that you wanted to be a perfectionist, spend the time on it, but you
Mm.
could get these out a week, and then suddenly now you're getting your YouTube income. You're engaging with your base, and now you've got a really decent weekly income off the commission as well. I just looked at
Totally.
it. I was like, man, that is beautiful. That's using everything that's at your fingertips right now. And I just wanted to say just how much I appreciated it. Because, yeah, again, it reminded me, Andrew, check back in with the basics, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and it was great. But like I said, it was just a terrific experience because I don't have a clientele list. And what I was just thinking actually while you were saying that, which is interesting, is I think obviously people would want your paintings, the epic scale, the just the masterful technique and how they look. But I think also people just want something by Andrew Tischler. People just want something by SLEW. So
Hmm.
I think these people could have gotten a dog painting anywhere or ordered something online where you digitize a photo, but they wanted me to do it, or like for someone like you, and if the price was right. So that's something that um, also inspired me, and I'm working on making more stuff like that, not individual paintings because I can't really allot any like that much time weekly. I could do it maybe once a month or every other month, but like making prints is something I'm working on, and other
Sure.
custom high quality merchandise that brings the price way down, but people can still get something from me. And so many artists do that. I have never before. So
It's awesome. I mean, but there's so many different ways that you could monetize
yeah,
this, right?
totally. Yeah. Yeah, but no, the thing is, like, now actually it's really funny. If you want me to take you through my like, how I make money, and people ask this
Please.
all the time, so I think people love context, and I'm happy to share. But you know, the YouTube revenue, like is very fickle. If a lot of views, you get more money, and so some months I've been really low, a couple months have been really high. So that's not really, that's I think one third. It's not. It's sometimes the most, sometimes the least, but I actually am also like a pretty much like a freelance videographer. I do a whole bunch of video work, and people, even my family, it's funny, like my family and friends think I'm like just the graffiti artist kid, but I actually spend equal, if not more time, behind a computer editing. I have an endless amount of editing to do every day, every week. And so that's another way I make a lot of my money is doing freelance videoing, a lot for my buddies, which is great because I can support my friends and they pay me, but it's a bunch of creative work doing Instagram videos for brands or um, Kickstarter videos. Just, the world is digital content now, and people need the content being made. So that's another huge part of how I make money. Actually, I was in Peru in January filming a short documentary for my buddy who's producing and manufacturing clothes out there. So, and that was a huge deal. That took like, a month to edit. And so that's kind of all the behind the scenes stuff I don't really share on YouTube, but and then I also make, then I also have commissions, but the commissions for paintings is also extremely fickle, inconsistent because I don't have a crazy client base. And, when I'm not editing videos for other people and making money, I want to be making paintings for myself and making paintings for myself, like the big stencil projects I do or fantastical characters. Like if my videos do well, I can make money doing that. And so I do take oil painting commissions when I can, if the price is right, if the time is right, if it's a cool project I'm interested. But surprisingly, and it's such an I'm grateful to say that I've actually been able to say no a lot recently, which is something I've never thought I've would be in the position to because it's just time. I'm not, I don't have any student debt. I'm so fortunate. I have student debt. I have enough money to pay for my studio rent monthly, which is pretty much my only expenses. I mean, obviously there's other little expenses, but I live at home, so I don't have many huge ones. So pretty much my time is what is where my worth is right now. And I want to be making, like you said, massive paintings, massive stencil projects, crazy things I dream about as well as make money. So it's just that balance. But I pretty much also moving forward are going to stop doing the video work for other people, because as much as I love it and it's very consistent money, it's I could be spending as much time on the computer as I am for these other people and be making money, but also be doing my thing. So this is all extremely in the past like 3 months that this all is happening and transitioning. So maybe I'm just venting it out a little, but that's kind of where I am. As like, this videographer and artist. It's just something that, I mean, you know how long videos take and the things, and I try to make my videos like super epic. So it just takes so much time, and I can't be doing a whole lot of stuff all at once.
Oh, dude, 100%. Videos take so long. They
Yeah.
really take so long. Now I'm very fortunate, and hopefully it will continue to last. But this year I've hired a videographer, editor, and so she works
Cool.
with me on a full-time basis, which has allowed me to get more
Whoa.
content out, which has allowed me to
That's
focus on
awesome.
my work. Because at the end of the day, what I found is I was spending more time online with the videos, which is fine, but I was spending
Mm,
more time doing actual production stuff than painting and drawing, and then just trying to juggle both of those, which are really
yeah.
both full-time jobs. I mean, I used to work, 60 to 80 hours a week just at the easel alone. And then I
Wow.
found I cut that right back to just fit in the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things, again, that I hear from your story, and it is so important today. And I think, again, in this day and age, the current time that we're in, and again, notwithstanding the current crisis that the world's in, diversification is key. And I don't think it's too late to diversify. So if people out there hearing this are going, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, I could have done that. I
Hmm.
don't think there's really any barrier to entry here for anybody wanting to, beef up their social media, focus more on their creativity, share that with more people, learn some strategies by watching people like you, and try and develop all of these skills and spread out a little bit. I've talked to so many people, a couple of friends who were artists that put all their eggs in one basket, and now they're asking for advice on what to do. And
Yeah.
I hope I have good enough answers for them, but I think the answer really for us all, if I may be so bold, is to diversify, to get as
Totally.
many different irons in the fire as possible. Now, if you have a skill for videography, which clearly you do, your videos are beautiful. They're beautiful. Like
Thanks,
you're
man.
just like the quality of the editing, the framing of each shot. I'm appreciating camera movement, the music, the sound, the lighting, all the little bits that most people don't think. I think when you're doing it right, most people don't notice those things. They
Mm,
only notice
hmm.
when it's bad. But as a bit of a videographer myself, again, not at your level of quality, because I've stumbled across a few things. But I'm looking at those videos going, damn, Sam, they're slick, dude. Like there's one shot where when you're revealing that really cool video you did of your self-portrait, the multiple portraits in one painting, and you're
Mm,
zooming in on that final
yeah.
piece, and I'm like, oh, the movement is so nice. He must be he's on a gimbal. No, he's on a sled. No, he must have a Ronin. What's he got? It's really
That's
good.
handheld, baby.
Handheld.
Well, it's like there's a warp stabilizer on the editing, so that covers most of my shakiness.
Dude,
Yeah.
your walk as you're holding the camera, you must be like walking like a cat, just like
Oh, I mean, if there's a GoPro also in the corner and that you showed it to some psychologist, they would probably think I'm a psychopath. How many times I frame up, I move the light an inch, so this is another thing that it kind of goes back to the
yeah.
taking away from the art. Like, so it's hard to explain, but like I take the video as much as a piece of work as the painting. And it's all this cycle. I'm painting, I'm videoing myself in my painting, I'm making a piece of work about what I'm doing in the video. So it's this circle of life kind of thing. But I really do try to make with the videos like a music video for art, and I try to make each video timeless. I know that sounds dramatic, but I'm going to try to make the best video ever of this painting project and it's going to be on the internet and it will be there forever. So, I'm going to try to put the best quality, obviously, just like kind of anything you want to do, hold yourself to a high standard. But it takes so much time, man, and it takes away, like, even doing the little intros, I'll redo it 25 times. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but it's like it gets obsessive, and I love it. And it's like that directorial sense I was talking about, like, thinking of the video in your mind, the different cuts you're going to do, the frames, all the B-roll. Um, Thank God I love it, because the amount of work is just ridiculous. And the amount of hours I spend behind a computer per week is almost disgusting, but it's because I love it, and because I want to make, a super epic video every time, because it's documenting my work, but documenting in a way that is super fun, and I think entertaining. I think it's just entertaining. I'm not trying to be a teacher. I always say that in my videos. I'm trying to share my experience, just like you are, but you're obviously a teacher, a masterful teacher. But I think, inspiring also people just through the excitement and me getting amped, is what I try to, convey.
It certainly comes across. It absolutely comes across. I mean, again, when I watch your videos, I'm having such a good time. It's just so cool. And even though our styles are so different, I really appreciate what you're putting into them. And I appreciate the end product. It's slick work. Personally, I mean, whilst I don't do, the graffiti style, I mean, you've got these motifs that seem to come up again and again and again in your work, like the Cyclops and the thing that you use for your logo.
Right.
Man, it's really cool stuff, dude. Like really cool stuff. Before we close up, tell me about this studio, because I love studio spaces. I'm pretty proud of my studio space, but
your studio looks so epic. And also, by the way, your recent video, what was it, where you do the embellishing on the framing video.
Yeah.
That was, I think, you showed a shot of your studio that I think I've ever seen. I've seen like every single one of your videos, and I was like, whoa, those huge tables and you're framing up. So
yeah,
me too. I love, I mean, who doesn't? And have you done sorry, this is so off topic, but have you done a studio tour video?
It's coming out this week. So by the time this podcast goes live, by the time this podcast goes live, the people would have seen it.
Okay, wow.
So yeah,
I'm gonna be drooling over that.
if you're subscribed through my website, andrewtischler.com/subscribe, little plug there, then you'll get the videos that I put out on YouTube 24 hours ahead of time, and people are going to find out tonight exactly what this studio space looks like. So that's next.
Right on.
But I don't know if you could see over my shoulder, what I've actually done is I built brand new camera rigs, homemade camera rigs. So that's
I saw that in one of the videos, yeah.
That my pallet table's there, but over the back of it, which you probably can't see, it's out of view, is an articulated arm that I built to hold the camera, to get the tripods out of here. But oh man, it's
diversification, my man. There you go. You're setting the example.
No, but I think the trick is well, I do a lot of different things, but I do far more things very poorly. So maybe I've diversified too much. But look, man, it's the key. I love it, and the thing I love about being online as well is just that aspect of sharing it with people. I think, and I think you're a lot like this too, is sharing that process with people, letting people have an insight into you and what you do and what makes you tick. I think. Gary Vaynerchuk was saying something, and I think this is both a good thing and a bad thing, but as artists, we could use this to our advantage, is that as personalities, as people, as individuals, we're becoming the commodity, we're becoming the brand.
Totally.
And it's learning how to do this as an artist and putting yourself out there. The days of hiding behind your work, I think, are over. Stepping out in front of it and say, hey, my name's Sam, this is what I got. I think
right, and asking permission to do that. There's no need anymore. There's no one stopping you from doing that.
Absolutely right, man. Absolutely right.
It's funny. My older sister, actually works at Gary's company and has been working for him for 3 years, as well as my other best friend. They work at VaynerMedia, so I'm fully Team Gary. I love him as well.
You're that close to being on the inside.
Well, my sister, she's on the she works for the advertising side of VaynerMedia. And then actually one of my best friends who is a videographer who helps me, he's on Gary's creative team, which is totally, I mean, he's like my inside man. He's like just the zeitgeist of social media. Like go to him for every need ever. But yeah.
Dude, that is
I totally
awesome.
a lot of yeah, I'm lucky. He's my homie. He actually helped me film the short documentary I did of one of my biggest projects. But I love Gary. I think a lot of things he says isn't, contextual to a lot of people, but if you are that type of person, it's like exactly what you need to hear. It's kind of just like cuts through the bullshit. And, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Cuts right to the truth of it. And sometimes it's a bit of a rude awakening. I personally, I don't like that kind of language that he uses.
Yeah.
But no, I say that. I swear way too much myself. I try to clean it up for the videos and the podcast, but he does have a way of cutting right to the point and waking you up and going, oh my goodness, okay, I've got to pay attention to that. Yeah. Well, Sam, this has been an absolute treat, a real pleasure having a chance to meet you and have a chance to talk to you and hear more about your artistic journey. Thank you so much for being on The Creative Endeavor.
You bet, man. It was honestly a huge pleasure. I'm such a fan, so this was, quite the conversation. I appreciate it.
Well, I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. Thank you so much to Sam, aka SLEW, for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure to have your company, Sam. Now, if you want to find some more of Sam's work, then make sure you check those links down in the description below. He can be found on his Instagram, his YouTube channel, and his website. Again, just find those links in that description box down below. Now, don't miss another podcast. I got several more of these episodes coming your way. Simply click that like button, leave me a comment down below, and click that little notification icon once you're subscribed to this channel. Again, I've got loads of these interviews lined up to just try and lift our spirits while we're all going through this thing together. Now, of course, you can find me on social media. Those links are down below as well. But most important, make sure you're subscribed through my website at andrewtischler.com. Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed your company, and I'll see you again soon.